Welcome to the Workology Podcast, a podcast for the disruptive workplace leader. Join host Jessica Miller-Merrill, founder of Workology.com, as she sits down and gets to the bottom of trends, tools, and case studies for the business leader, HR, and recruiting professional who is tired of the status quo. Now here's Jessica with this episode of Workology.
Welcome to the Workology Podcast, sponsored by Clear Company. On today's podcast, I'd like to talk about using chatbots in HR to help streamline tasks and free up your team's time to focus on more high-touch projects. Don't we all want that? I feel like sometimes my day is just taken up by just reading emails and responding to questions from my team or just kind of generalized things. They just seem to eat away. Chatbots, powered by artificial intelligence or AI, and armed with machine learning, can interact with humans and become increasingly agile with each interaction. They're learning while they're responding and engaging you. If you've ever talked to Amazon's Alexa, Apple's Siri, or Microsoft's Cortana, you were interacting with a chatbot. Chatbots have been a very hot topic in HR. They will continue to be, and that's why I wanted to talk with my friend Beth White. She's the founder and chief bot at MeBeBot to join me on today's podcast. Beth, welcome to the Workology Podcast.
Thank you, Jessica.
Now, you and I know each other, but for those that don't know you, can you talk a little bit to our listening audience about your background, because you worked in HR also, and what led you to develop a technology product that supports human resources?
Yes, I did work in HR for about 15 or more years. It's kind of embarrassing to say at times, but and I had an exposure to all different facets of HR, from recruiting, employee relations, compensation, benefits, you name it. And I was fortunate to work at a number of different types of companies, from large Fortune 100 companies to software startups. And I evolved over the time with the technology, meaning technology kind of came into HR at the time I was beginning my career. So I was able to embrace this technology and see how it could be utilized for productivity and efficiencies. And from that just became a natural fascination of how can we better ourselves in HR and serve our employees better by using the types of technology and tools out there, so that we are able to free ourselves up to do what we do best as humans, which is interacting with our employees.
So MeBeBot's virtual assistant technology has a lot of benefits to recruiting and HR teams. Can you talk us through about how we can use chatbots for internal employees and maybe how it differs from using the technology in recruiting?
Yeah, it's great. There's a lot of confusion about chatbots and what they are. And when we think about using chatbots for the employees, it's really about putting a new communication mechanism in what we call the flow of work, as Josh Bersin says, which there's a fabulous different types of communication tools out there and collaboration platforms like Slack and Microsoft Teams, Google Hangouts. And our employees are used to using these tools to communicate to each other. So the concept is using chatbots, which are just applications inside these same tools. Employees are able to, see a new channel, a new way to interact with HR. So they can ask questions, for example, with the HR TalkBot product regarding frequently asked questions. And by automating different types of responses using natural language processing and artificial intelligence, they're able to get access to HR from either their phone or computer devices from anywhere, anytime. So we really see it different as it's just kind of a new kind of mechanism to extend the reach of HR and to be more available to our employees.
When I think about chatbots, I think about consumer chatbots, and it might be an interaction that many of you listening have had, maybe with trying to do a return or asking a question with Amazon. And so talk to us about how that technology is the same or different than what you have with the HR TalkBot.
Sure. With the HR TalkBot, our main focus is to automate a routine task that no matter what company you've worked at, you have answered employee frequently asked questions, and do it in a way where it's a naturally language driven in both even the questions employees can ask and the answer delivered. With that interaction, our chatbot's actually able to generate real-time data, and the data is real important because I think it gives HR exposure for the first time to see exactly how many people are asking questions on the chatbot, what types of questions are they asking, and from what geographic region. And it really moves and elevates HR to another level of being able to have access to real-time data versus what we've lived in for many years, which I call and others call autopsy data. It's data that you can't really respond to or do anything with. If you happen to see many employees asking questions of a certain type, perhaps there's ways that you can send out communications, provide educations, or further guidance. So it's really being able to respond and being reactive. It is similar to what we see as consumers, and that's what's beautiful about it, because all our employees are used to interacting with these types of tools in their own lives outside of work. So it gives them a very natural experience inside the workplace to have these tools available to them.
I love it. And I think about all the frequently asked questions I always seem to get when I was in an HR generalist type role. How do I calculate my vacation? Where can I get my FMLA paperwork? Where's the expense form for trips? Where's that on the intranet? The TalkBot, the chatbot, can help answer all those questions, which will free you up so that you can handle and think about and just have brain space for more, I guess not more important, but different areas of the HR job.
Yeah, that's right, Jessica. When you look at the role of HR, it's becoming more and more complex. We have, for the first time, I believe you've even said 5 generations of people in the workforce that all have very different needs and demands and the ways that they go about performing their jobs and their work. We have a skills shortage, and we have a very tight talent market. So HR is already challenged with so many different types of strategic initiatives that they need to deliver to the business in order to stay ahead of the curve and to really push the business goals further. And if you can get, I guess, the low-hanging fruit or the friction type of tasks off your plate, it really frees you up to be able to maybe be more creative, to have more focused time and energy to do these types of tasks that I think really drive overall business productivity. And of course, most businesses are driven by, satisfied employees and customers, as well as overall, successful revenues.
So we talked a little bit about chatbots, and one of the things that I have been really passionate about is dispelling and helping to educate, just provide HR and recruiting people with information on what is artificial intelligence. So I was hoping that you could maybe talk to us a little bit about some terms. The first is natural language processing, machine learning, and then artificial intelligence. So maybe kind of walk us through what those are and then how they've evolved in the time that you've been in the technology space supporting HR.
Well, I know that artificial intelligence is not new. I mean, there's several books even on the market that some folks say it's back to, the Middle Ages, but we see kind of historically the evolution of artificial intelligence when Alan Turing and the Turing test determined that machines can think and learn. And so really it's a big umbrella term that's misunderstood often because there's many different types of components and applications inside artificial intelligence. What we leverage at MeBot within the HR TalkBot product is natural language processing, and that's real similar to what you all use when you're engaging with Siri or Alexa or your Google Home device, where a computer is taking your sentence and breaking it down into parts of speech and determining in nanoseconds exactly what you need and returning a result in order to satisfy your question. So that's one component of artificial intelligence. But another aspect to that is the machine has to learn, and that's the machine learning component, where there are levels of machine learning, and often at this state and era that we're in, supervised or human-assisted learning of the natural language processing is occurring on the back end. So we're helping the computer along to understand what are the right and wrong answers if there is a problem with the computer predicting the correct response. So that's natural language processing, machine learning. Those are components of AI. And then, of course, there's the whole world of the cognitive learning and the ability to synthesize the data and make sense of it all, right? So those are components where we're able to take the amount of activity and use predictive analytics to determine what is occurring in real time, instead of having humans look at reports and synthesizing the data to come up with observations or theories.
What I'm thinking about as you're talking, and we talked about a Siri or Alexa when you ask it a question. Like I'll say, what's the weather today, Alexa? And then Alexa will tell me what the weather is, assuming that I am in Austin, Texas, right? So that's the natural language processing piece. Or using machine learning to determine that I was talking about the weather in Austin, Texas. And then another component to that machine learning piece could be when it asks me, because Alexa does do this, it'll say, like, was that the answer that you wanted? And if I say yes, then yes, that was the answer that I wanted. No, then no, it wasn't the answer, and something needs to be refined or learned. So when I think about those two components in AI, that's what I think about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's common because, these are new devices. This is a new kind of concept for human nature. I remember when, we had our first browser-based solutions and you're doing searches on the internet for information. You had to learn how to use Boolean search to get the right data back. And as far as, putting in keywords and returning what you wanted for information within a browser-based searches. So this is really rethinking, like computers want to and have been trained to learn through the way that the English language or other languages should be spoken in a grammatically correct way and in a short, concise way, and it can produce the results. And so I think that's part of a learning curve of the users to be more effective, and I think we've all been now trained a little bit better by our Siri devices and Alexa if we want a certain type of response, how to ask and formulate that question. So it's part of the components of the HR TalkBot is we're able to train the solution to think about the different ways people may ask, again, the commonly asked HR questions. And when there are people asking it in a different way, the machine learning aspect of it is us observing this type of content and training the machine that, oh yeah, this is another way that this could be asked. Let's incorporate it into our base solution.
Adopting new technology can be a pain. We all know that. And it's a really point of contention, I think, a lot for human resources. After I started using chatbot technology on the Workology website, which is not anything near what Beth's technology does, but just a simple chatbot, kind of a Q&A style questions, I was surprised at how easy it was to use. It wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be, how technical. Now, there's a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes that we don't necessarily get to see as a user of that technology. But I wanted you to talk a little bit about the process. How does this process work where somebody says, okay, I'm ready to go. I want to add an HR chatbot to my HR team. How do we set that up, and is it easy to use?
That's a great question. And again, I think there's a lot of information out there about this type of technology that makes it seem far more complex than what it truly is. In fact, having set up applicant tracking software systems in my past, HRIS and payroll systems, setting up a chatbot is probably about 1/10 of the time and complexity to those other types of solutions. We've designed ours with the HR person in mind, meaning that 80% of many of the questions I was asked, regardless of what company I worked at, were the same. And so we came into this mindset of like, let's provide HR people this type of content. Let them choose which questions they want to include in their chatbot through a very easy to use web interface, and allow them the ability to personalize the responses to their employee base, because they know the voice that the employees, are used to being like marketed to or heard within the internal communications, and we want to mimic what they have as far as their culture, because that's important to us. But giving them that ability to do it themselves without having to enlist the help of developers or pay for custom software development, we're definitely working toward avoiding any of that and making it more of anywhere from a 2-week to a 6-week process, and you're up and running with your own chatbot. So it's designed, again, to be easy to use and easy to implement and easy to maintain. That's another big key element, is we want HR to feel like they can maintain this, and it is their digital assistant. It's their new coworker.
Let's take a reset. This is Jessica Miller-Merrill, and you are listening to the Workology podcast sponsored by Clear Company. Today we're talking with Beth White, the founder of MebeBot. We're talking about chatbots and artificial intelligence technology for HR teams.
This podcast is sponsored by Clear Company, the fastest growing talent management system on the market, and recently won G2 Crowd's #1 user recommended Winter 2018 award. Visit clearcompany.com to learn more.
So for those of you that are listening, Beth and I have presented a couple different times together, several workshops and speaking engagements in person, and then most recently we also did a webinar, and I'll link to that webinar in the transcript of this podcast, where we talked about HR's readiness for artificial intelligence. Chatbots are a part of that. For those of you that are HRCI or SHRM certified, it's free on the Workology site. I'll link to that, and you can be able to access it and listen and be able to get 1 recertification credit. For the HRCI folks that are certified, that's a business credit, those coveted credits. So when we presented, you talked, Beth, about E2Open, and they're a case study. They're a customer of the HR TalkBot. And one of the things that I was most interested in hearing Debbie and you from E2Open talk was about how it was implemented, and then how it was able to scale globally, and then the time that it saved. So can you kind of give us a little bit of an insight into those areas?
Yeah, it was a wonderful experience working with the team at E2Open, as they're extremely innovative. They were in a pressure situation. They had gone from being a publicly traded company to being owned by private equity on a path to acquire companies. Yet the HR team wasn't able to scale and grow to accommodate these types of transactions that were going to be occurring. So with the HR TalkBot, what they were able to do is really deduce down the types of questions that not only these employees from the companies they would be acquiring would be asking, but their own current employees would ask on an ongoing basis and as new hires. So in providing these questions and answers in their chatbot, which they call AVA, which stands for E2Open Virtual Assistant, AVA is answering hundreds of questions a month, saving the HR team hundreds of hours of time in answering these types of questions that were routine to them, but yet disruptive and very hard to manage, especially when they had many other tasks to do as far as onboarding these employees from these acquisitions. So we started out with a solution in the US, we expanded it globally, and now the IT team also got wind of Ava and thought, wow, she's so helpful to HR. Why don't we customize Ava to answer some IT help desk questions? So Ava now is is multiversed and she's continually becoming smarter and growing in her content, not just in HR but in IT. And employees really have gravitated to having that be a helpful solution that they can have, again, wherever they are, because they are global, and HR is often not available 24/7 for all their employee base.
I'd like to think we can sleep a little bit in HR. Like we deserve a little bit of a break. I know we talked about this at the beginning, but I wanted to ask again for you to just clarify. Where are people going to engage with Ava at E2Open? Like, where is the chatbot located? It's not by the office on the way to HR's desk. Where are they going to ask questions and get the help they need?
Yeah, that's a great question. Ava lives inside Microsoft Teams today, inside E2Open's enterprise. So that means that she is in your channel, they call it, just like you would chat to your coworker. So she has a name and a little image, a little avatar image, and so you can ask Ava questions just like you may ask a coworker of yours for a report or information about an upcoming meeting. So it's really in the flow of work and where people are already communicating and collaborating. She can also live inside intranet pages or in Confluence or other types of centralized tools that companies use to store things like your employee handbook, your benefit summary. So she can be kind of like a widget or like a little interface inside of a web page. Very accessible wherever people are doing their jobs. And with being inside Teams, that is a mobile app that the employees can have on their phone, and therefore Ava can be traveling with them 24/7.
One of the things I love about the HR Talkbot is that it can be on your mobile device, right, if you're using Slack or Teams. But then if you're on your mobile phone, you can just hit that little microphone and you can just talk directly to Ava, and then she responds back with text. But it makes it super handy.
Absolutely. I know I'm very much a fan of the talk to text features in my iPhone, and so having that ability, I know, Jessica, you do a lot of great work talking about accessibility for people with disabilities, so this is another way and an avenue to add a voice component to a solution within your HR business tools.
One of the questions that we also got from the AI HR Readiness Workshop was, how do you get employees, E2Open and maybe other clients too, how do they get employees to use Ava or the HR Talkbot? How do we make sure that employees know about this and know how to use it?
Well, I think a lot of the creators of different types of chatbots really believe that creating a persona for your chatbot is important, and really personalizing that chatbot to your culture and your company is probably one of the first steps. So like at E2Open, for example, they created Ava and they gave her a little avatar picture so people can equate her to being a digital assistant for HR and IT. And then from there, we had a lot of fun with, considering her like a new hire. They had her on the digital signage in all the offices that welcomed visitors and guests, along with, the screen that shows other new hires to the company. We had a little celebratory new hire party for her. We created lots of different types of flyers and communications. Really a lot of the same activities you do when you're encouraging your employees to pay attention to the annual enrollment process or open enrollment process. It's a lot of similar marketing tactics to get people's attention that there's something new, because truly it's a new benefit for employees. So promoted just like you would another type of benefit to the employee base.
So where should HR leaders start? Maybe they're considering using a chatbot for internal functions, and where do they go to be able to learn how to scale that within their organization?
Yeah, this is a great question. While I do believe every organization has frequently asked questions that come to HR that can be easy automation, other areas, and MeeBot is focused on looking at using chatbots for areas like learning and development, helping out with streamlining performance appraisals, the benefits enrollment process, all different facets of HR that could be, frankly, more automated. And so it really comes down to pain points. Where in your organization are you seeing yourself spending a lot of time on tasks that it could be better automated, and addressing those needs? Because, I mean, one thing about HR that we're not great at is we don't often kind of count up our hours we spent on different things. Whereas if you talk to a software developer or people in IT, they know how their time is kind of allocated. And you'd be surprised how much distractions from frequently asked questions and other types of routine tasks take out of the day. Again, I'm a big believer that HR can elevate their role inside the organization if they had more time to focus on strategic initiatives that push the business forward faster.
I am thinking about, again, back to my HR career as an HR generalist, and I never sat down when somebody came to the office and wrote down, oh, this person had a question about X, and then this person came down and had a question about this. And I certainly didn't think about how much time I was spending answering those questions and the disruption that it caused, like in my own personal flow of work. And so I think that this type of automation can be really awesome, because as a contributor to the organization on my HR team, having somebody like an Ava or an HR TalkBot allows me to be able to get my things done. And then I can really focus on the things that I have on my to-do list. While employee questions are important, there's a place for them to go to be able to get those immediately. And I think there's a lot of value in those things.
Well, and we as consumers are used to having different types of mechanisms for contacting our cable company, our phone company, insurance, banks. They're leveraging these types of technologies and tools inside those types of businesses. So my question is, why aren't we using that same methodology inside our business? So people love it. Generations, my dad is very tech savvy now on things like this and loves to get involved in answering simple questions through his phone. I don't think it's generational. I think it crosses just our consumer experience and bringing a little bit of that aspect into the workplace.
Well, Beth, thank you again for taking the time to stop by and talk with us about chatbots and give us some good insights into artificial intelligence. Where can people go to learn more about you and then MimiBot and the HR TalkBot?
Sure. Our website is www.mebebot, M as in Mary, EBEBOT.com. So we'd love to have you visit our site. Myself, I'm on LinkedIn. Love connecting with people on LinkedIn. So please do reach out. And we're very interested in the HR opinions and thoughts about utilizing this type of technology. You all are out there every day doing different tasks, and think about what you think could be automated. And it's not that we're about replacing humans in HR. We're about letting HR step up to a level where you're utilizing your skills and you're having interesting work to do that's also making you feel more fulfilled.
Well, thank you again, and we'll link to the website, the webinar, and then also encourage you to take the AI HR survey. So we'll link to all those things. If you don't have access to computer straight away, you can text AI HR to the number 55678 and be able to get the link directly to complete the survey, which is closing soon. And I'm excited that we're going to be releasing the preliminary results of that report right just before the HR Technology Conference in October. I could talk for hours, and those that know me know this is true when it comes to HR tech, and especially about how companies can future-proof productivity with new tools and technology. This has been a fascinating discussion. Beth is a friend and just someone that I enjoy spending time with, and I am so pleased to have the opportunity for you to talk with her and learn more about AI and chatbots. She has so much experience working with companies in AI and her background in human resources as a former practitioner, now technology founder. She really is a diamond in the rough. Thank you for joining the Workology podcast, sponsored by Clear Company. This podcast is for the disruptive workplace leader who's tired of the status quo. This is Jessica Miller Merrill. Until next time, you can visit workology.com to listen to all our previous podcast episodes.
Production services for the Workology podcast with Jessica Miller Merrill provided by TotalPicture.com.